Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog, and Daryl Morey has done it again. Daryl Morey, you know, a lot of people were giving him shit for the Ben Simmons trade and stuff like that, and acquiring James Harden. He went from asking for picks to giving up picks. Well, he got James Harden and then flipped James Harden to the Clippers for probably way more than what he should have gotten. The result has been that the 76ers have looked fucking amazing, and the Los Angeles Clippers look like they're up the creek without a paddle. They are officially 0-6 since trading for James Harden, and James Harden has not had a single game with a positive box plus minus since playing for the Clippers. And to be fair, I do not expect the Clippers to continue to be this bad, but the fact of the matter is the Clippers gave up a lot of depth in order to get James Harden. Regardless of what you think about Robert Covington, Marcus Morris, Nicholas Batum, and KJ Martin, okay? The fact of the matter is Nicholas Batum and Robert Covington have been very good for the 76ers. Now, Nicholas Batum has been shooting the lights out for the 76ers while also playing some defense. And Robert Covington, well, Robert Covington has not been very good shooting, or scoring-wise, but he has been very good on the defensive side of the ball, averaging 1.5 steals a game, or 1.6 steals a game, and shooting absolutely fucking atrocious from the field. But the fact of the matter is, really that's what Philly needed all along, was some more depth, and they got it for James Harden. Yes, they did not get Terrence Mann out of it, but the fact of the matter is the Clippers are now a team that is absolutely strapped for cash. You know, they have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who have player options at the end of this year, and so does James Harden. James Harden has 1 year left on his deal, and it's worth $36 million at the end of this season. James Harden will, in fact, be an unrestricted free agent, and I'm just going to call it what it is. I really don't think James Harden is going to re-sign with the Clippers. I have an odd feeling that the Clippers gave up everything they had to get James Harden in order to convince Kawhi Leonard and Paul George to actually stay there. But the problem is their team now kind of sucks. To be fair, their team actually looks better with James Harden off the floor, which sucks to say. But the fact of the matter is when James Harden is on the floor, he's very ball dominant, and he doesn't really move the ball around a whole lot. Now, granted, they are going to be signing Daniel Tice, a guy that the Pacers just waived, and the Clippers have actually agreed to eat some of his salary, so instead of a $9 million cap hit to the Pacers, it will only be like a $5.7 million cap hit. But it's just the idea, man, even with the Daniel Tice signing and trading for Harden and having Kawhi and PG, I really don't think this is a championship contending team. And I think ultimately that's what's going to determine if whether or not Paul George and Kawhi Leonard come back. Right now, their record is not very good at all. If we go to Basketball Reference, it's saying right now their record is 3-7, which is really bad. That's Charlotte Hornets level bad. Right now, the Chicago Bulls have a better record right now than the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Clippers are a team that people keep putting in the conversation as a perennial championship contending team when Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are healthy, but that's almost fucking never. And even when they are healthy, I still don't think they're good enough to make a championship run. Even with James Harden on their roster, this is a team that's you can't put 3 guys out there against 5 and potentially 7 or 8, depending on what team you're going to play in the playoffs, and expect to make a major playoff run. It's just not going to happen. And I really think that come the trade deadline, the Clippers are going to be sellers. I'm just going to call it what it is. I have an odd feeling they're going to be sellers. All it's going to take is Kawhi Leonard to say, I'm not coming back, and Paul George could echo that sentiment. Same thing with James Harden, and suddenly the Clippers are going to be on the outside looking in. And they're going to have to find a trade partner very quickly, I think, for one of the 3. James Harden is not going to be movable. I'm just going to call it what it is. Moving James Harden would be very hard, and on top of it, I just don't think that they're going to get back for James Harden what they gave up. It's just usually in situations like that where you have a disgruntled star, and not only are they, kind of past their prime, but they're also a headache on pretty much every team they play on. James Harden is not going to be a guy that they're going to get a whole lot for if that does become the situation. Now, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, on the other hand, that's a different story. Kawhi Leonard's a very good player, but he seems to be on a minutes restriction every other night, which kind of sucks because I have him on my fantasy team, and it's some nights he plays 28, 30 minutes, other nights he plays 16. So I don't really know, man. I'm not sure what's going on. Like, I really kind of question, like, how much can you even get for Kawhi Leonard if you constantly have to have him on load management? I would argue the most valuable asset that the Clippers have right now at this point in time is probably Paul George, and it's because right now at the current point in time, he's leading the league in steals, and he's also a very good player. Granted, he's injury prone, but he's not a guy that you have to sit every other game for back-to-backs and shit like that. They choose to, but that doesn't mean he absolutely has to. Whereas in Kawhi Leonard's case, it seems almost like they have to do that with him. I'm not sure why, but that appears to be the situation. So all I'm saying is I have given up on the Los Angeles Clippers. If the Chicago Bulls are already selling, and, you know, we're 10 games into the season, I wouldn't be shocked if the Los Angeles Clippers are also thinking about that as well. Now, I don't think they're going to continue to be ass. I will say that. Like, I don't think they're going to continue this losing streak, but if they do go 0-10, I'd be pretty shocked. But this is a team that I just think, like, come the trade deadline, they're not going to have a winning record. I just have a really, strange gut feeling that the Los Angeles Clippers are not even going to have a winning record come the trade deadline. And if that is the case, I expect them to be sellers. They're going to sell Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, maybe even James Harden, and just see if they can just get draft picks for these guys. Not to mention that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are making about $45 million a piece, so it's not going to be easy to move just one of them. You know what I'm saying? Like they're gonna struggle to move just one of them. Never mind both of them. So I don't really know what teams could really get in on that. There's not a lot of teams that I think would be really interested in getting in on that if you're a younger team. Like, I understand the Pacers might have some interest in a Paul George or a Kawhi Leonard. The Sacramento Kings might have interest, and the Orlando Magic might have interest. Outside of that, I can't see a lot of other teams being interested in that. Miami, maybe, you know what I'm saying, if they're willing to part ways with some of their draft picks. But there's not a lot of teams out there with a lot of guys with salary cap to be making moves. The Knicks are going to be a team that definitely makes a move. A lot of their contracts are extremely tradable, so trading for a guy like Paul George or Kawhi Leonard is not outside of the realm for the Knicks. But there's like maybe 4 or 5 teams that'll be in the mix, but there's not going to be a whole lot of teams that are like, you know, adding one of these guys to their roster is going to make a significant change to what's happening. I actually kind of like the idea of the Pacers and the Knicks trading for either one of those guys, because the fact of the matter is they're both very good defenders, and both of these teams are in situations where they do need a bona fide number 2 guy, because Tyrese Halliburton has nobody and Julius Randle is a fucking train wreck. So it's just like, at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like the Clippers are working towards nothing, unfortunately. You know, like, they're a team that, once James Harden comes out of the game, they move the ball so much better. Norman Powell gets more shots. You know, like, they still have, you know, Ivanka Zubac. They're going to get Daniel Tice. But the problem is, like, they don't have any wing help anymore. Yeah, you still have Terrence Mann. You still have Bones Highland. But the problem is, you know, most of the guys on their roster as well are in contract years. You know, I would say more than 50% of their roster either has a player option or is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. And in order to bring back Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and James Harden, some significant promises would have to be made. And I simply don't think that's, like, any promises that the Clippers make to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I don't necessarily think they're maybe so much worried about James Harden if they can bring back Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But the fact of the matter is, the Clippers would have to make some very, very significant promises to Kawhi Leonard specifically, never mind Paul George, in order to get him to come back. Okay, because Kawhi Leonard is still their best player when he actually goes out there and plays 28 minutes a game. Okay, so Kawhi Leonard still has it. It's just the idea you would have to promise like a championship to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George to get them to come back. And I feel like even if they were to present that promise, they're not going to be able to fulfill it. And I think Kawhi Leonard and Paul George both know that. They're great when they play together, but the problem is they almost never play together because they're always injured or have always been injured. And they're working on the better side of 30 for both of them. You know what I'm saying? Paul George, I think, is 33 or 34 in that ballpark. Same thing with Kawhi Leonard. I think Kawhi Leonard is, 31 or 32. So it's just the idea. It's like, yeah, as much as you would maybe like to retain those guys for another 3 or 4 years, I guarantee you Kawhi wants to win another championship, and I guarantee Paul George would like to just win one. And I don't think that the Los Angeles Clippers are going to be able to provide that going forward. No matter what they bring those guys back for, it's like signing them both to begin with, put them in salary cap space hell, and with the way that salary cap works in the NBA these days, the amount of money guys are getting paid, you know, you're going to have to probably pay upwards of 150 bands to one of them, and if you have to do that, you're probably not going to go very far. You know, essentially, not only that, but you know, I don't think Kawhi Leonard is necessarily a guy you build around anymore. I think he's a guy you add to a team that's already established if you want to win. Same thing with Paul George. I don't think Paul George is a guy you can really build a team around. I think he's a guy that you add to a team in order to be somebody's 1B. I don't think he can be the primary player on a championship team. I just don't. As much as I like Paul George and love the shit out of Paul George, I just don't think he's the guy that can lead a team to a championship. He can have MVP level seasons, and you know, he's a great two-way player, but do I think he's capable of leading a team to a championship? I just don't think so. I know he almost did it with Indiana back in the early 2010s, but it's just, I kind of am besides myself at this point to believe he can do that. So, I don't know. Like he's like on the cusp of a guy who can but can't. You know what I'm saying? Paul George is just a really weird case. But, yeah, I think the Clippers are done. And it sucks to say that 11 games into the season, but they're 3-7. And unless they automatically figure out how to play with James Harden and, you know, find a way to adapt to his game, I just don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think the Clippers are going to win a lot. I don't think they're going to have a winning record come the trade deadline, and I don't think they're going to be in championship contention. So, yeah, and not to mention, you know, when you watch James Harden play ball for the Clippers, a lot of guys are just standing around and not moving around and just letting him isolate, and I have an odd feeling that's coming to an end too, and if that does come to an end and Tyronn Lue takes the ball out of James Harden's hands and makes him do what Doc Rivers made him do, be more of a facilitator, first, score second type of guy, who's to say that James Harden won't get disgruntled, you know, in Los Angeles? And I think that's the biggest worry with this team, is the idea that James Harden is not the player that he thinks he is. You know what I'm saying? They might play the ball scheme of let James cook for 10 games, but if you go 0-10 in those fucking games, let James Harden cook ain't gonna be the same fucking thing anymore. You know what I'm saying? Soon it's gonna be, okay, you know, you're pretty good at passing the ball. Yeah, you're gonna pass the ball to Paul George and Kawhi and score second. And if that happens, I feel like we'll be in the same situation in LA that we were in Philly, where James Harden is pissed off because he can't win another scoring title. So, I don't know, man. Really weird situation. Sucks for the Clippers. Turned out pretty good for Philly, if you ask me. Tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. A like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.